It's time to pull those belts tight, race fans. The front stretch is coming at you, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. Now, here's Dan Taylor and Dirk Houston.
Well, good morning to you, race fans, and welcome to the front stretch presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs, online at joeskarting.com. Fast-paced, white-knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue. Get over to Joe's Karting today and do yourself right with a little indoor kart racing. And as always, it is the Daytona 500. Well, not as always, but thank God it's finally the Daytona 500 day, and we've been talking about it for, what, I think right around 86 days was between Homestead and Daytona. Not a long off season, but it kind of felt long at times. Chad Robb joining us in the studio now. I forgot to even introduce you. I'm sorry, sir.
Hey, that's all right. Thanks for having me on the show.
It's good to have you again, as always. And, of course, what is your Facebook page, Twitter handle, and ways that people can follow you throughout the race season?
Facebook page is Fancy NASCAR Tips by Chad, and I got all your fancy NASCAR information, keep you up to date on everything. You can follow me on Twitter at Mr Fantasy NASCAR, and my webpage for my fancy NASCAR picks is fancyracingtips.com.
All right, and you could subscribe to Chad's website and not only get NASCAR fantasy tips, but football fantasy tips. And with sports betting illegal in Iowa, you could take some serious advantage of that pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah. We're doing golf right now. We're doing NASCAR, and football ended. Had some people ask me to get into the XFL, but I'm going to concentrate on NASCAR and worry about that. We'll see if XFL is around in a couple years.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, there's no stats on the XFL, so how can you predict anything on that?
No, it's tough.
You know, Vegas even got it wrong. They had a 9.5-point favorite in the first game that lost. So
yeah.
It's a true crapshoot in the XFL. But today's show, we're going to talk about a lot about the Daytona 500, getting you set for that. We're going to cover some of the news and notes. And boy, has there been a lot of news headlines since last Sunday when we talked and we saw the Busch Clash. So we'll talk a lot about that. And then in turn number 2, we're going to sit down with Clint Bowyer, driver of the number 14 at Stewart Haas Racing. We're going to talk to him. Turn number 3, Corey Zeitner, driver of the 19 Super Late Model. You're going to listen to that. Corey's going to talk about his 2019 run with the Malvern Bank Series, plans for 2020. Is he going to be in the 19 again? Is he going to be switching back to the 26? What's going to happen? You're going to have to find out in turn number 3. And then in turn number 4, we're going to get you set for today's Daytona 500 party and your final information on getting set for the Pick'ems contest. By the way, today's race at Daytona for the 500 is on Fox. That's the normal broadcast channel, not the higher-up sports channels at 1:30. So I would imagine coverage is going to start probably about 12:30 with green flag just shortly after 1:30.
Yeah, as far as on Fox, but they'll have all the pre-race stuff probably going up at 9 o'clock in the morning.
On Fox Sports 1, absolutely. Yeah. It's a glorious day for auto racing and a glorious time for auto racing. Eric Jones, let's start off with the latest news from when we broke off last week and ended last week's show. Eric Jones wins a very gruesome Busch Clash with, I believe, his teammate, Denny Hamlin, pushing him to victory. And good news.
Down teammate.
Yeah. Good news for Eric Jones. He passed post-race inspection, so everything is all set and final. Yeah. One race down, 38, 39 left to go for inspection.
I would like to see exactly what the readout looked like when that car went in the tunnel.
Yeah. Penske teammates a little bit upset at that race, and I know a lot of fans have had a conversation about that race. I want to start off with this, and I want our fans on Facebook to kind of chime in just a little bit if you guys can. There seems to be a definite line with Daytona and Talladega. If there's one big wreck, that's okay. Fans are okay with that. 2 big wrecks, all right. After that, fans start to really get frustrated, and then you start to see naturally drivers and teams getting very frustrated at the carnage. There's nothing NASCAR can do about that, can they? Besides just, hey, you know what? 5 laps before the race is over with, we're tired of you guys wrecking, so we're just going to throw the checkered flag. I mean, they could just totally throw everyone for a loop and try that once or twice to see how that goes over, but there's nothing you could do when these guys are just out there wrecking left and right.
Yeah, the restart wreck was the bad one. The other 2 were actually during the race. You say the restart wreck was during the race too, but they weren't at speed. So I don't consider that, racing when you're just trying to get up through the gears. And I mean, from my observation, and I had the volume turned down, I was literally just watching the video part of the race. It looked like Almirola spun the tires in the inside lane and just backed everybody up. And, that nobody had anywhere to go.
Yeah. Chad, what do you think? Is there anything NASCAR can do, or when they're out there wrecking, they're wrecking?
No, I think it's just part of racing. Blocking is part of racing. These guys all want to win. Nobody wants to finish second, especially in that race.
Yeah.
And, when you have half the field out there trying to save fuel and the other half coming like a freight train, what's Joey supposed to do? Just pull over and let him go by?
Right.
I mean,
anybody in second place hates blocking. Anybody in the lead has to block. I mean, there's no easy solution to it. You could outlaw it, but they tried that in the Xfinity Series for a while, and it got real hazy as far as kind of balls and strikes calls to where, was that a block or was that a bump? What was that?
Yeah, you can't outlaw it. And again, it's been going on forever. It's nothing new. I mean, the most famous one was the 79 Daytona 500, obviously the most famous blocking incident. But it's blocking with 8 or 9 laps to go like Logano did. That's a little on the silly side.
Yeah.
If there had been a lap to go or 2 laps to go, nobody would have said a word about it. But where they were at in the race to start blocking then was a little out of line.
I don't think the Daytona 500 is going to be as much carnage as the Busch Clash for 2 reasons. One, this is the points-paying race. This is the Big Daddy, so I think they're going to be a little bit calmer about it. And 2, I think that they learned their lesson a little bit. Maybe they got it out of their systems at wrecking.
And another thing is that the Chevys, you listen to Jimmy Johnson after the race, he said that the Chevys weren't set up to race well in the Clash. They had a lot of tweaking to do between that race and the 500 on Sunday. So I think the cars are going to be set up a little better so that they can maneuver a lot easier on the track, not be so loose out there. And that should help the drivers keep them under control.
Another one of the news headlines we're going to talk about, NASCAR appears they're interested in a street race for their 2021 season. Dirk and I have talked about this a lot on the front stretch. Fans have pulled us aside outside of the show and at the racetracks and kind of talked about what's going on with the 2021 season. I feel like it's going to be a benchmark for what could happen for NASCAR in the future. I think it could be a huge changing point. And if they're considering a road race, I'm intrigued to see what that would be like.
Well, a road race...
Excuse me, a street race.
Yeah,
street race.
I was going to say a road race and a street race have similarities but are different. But I can guarantee you one thing, that street race will not be in Omaha, Nebraska.
I heard it's going to be in Chicago.
Really? Well, it's going to be in a big market.
Yeah,
if something like that comes off, it'd be in a big market. And I wouldn't be surprised, even if to start out with on a first year, if you would see like an airport course like they did in Cleveland, I think is where they did that with the Formula One cars. They set up a course on the airport runways and everything. But Chicago's got a couple airports. They could close one down for a couple days. Wouldn't be that big a deal.
I heard some chatter on Twitter about they used to have a road course race around Soldier Field in Chicago.
Yeah.
And that's where they're thinking about doing it again.
Adam Stern posted, @Steve Phillips has effectively confirmed that NASCAR is exploring a street race around a football stadium, saying there are opportunities that we are exploring that might seem radically different. And he tags @Soldier Field, @LA Coliseum among those mentioned. So that's the 2 racetracks you're talking about there. Interesting to see there. I know that there was a big push, about 4 or 5 years ago. There was a company that put together a promotional video, a hype video of bringing one of these street races to Omaha, and they'd actually worked out a design, they'd worked out a track, they'd done the P&L on it, the profits and loss margins, what it would cost, what it should benefit Omaha, and it fell flat on its face.
Would that be because of the potholes?
Maybe. I know that Joe Koziski and Steve Koziski had been approached about it and helping to give some of the advice as far as what they would expect for costs and maintenance and city ordinances and stuff like that. So it was a serious conversation for a time being. I don't know how far it went. It obviously didn't go far enough to really garnish much more than a promotional video.
Well, I mean, by the time you build the track, and they basically build the track on city streets surrounded by safer barriers. But if you did anything with any businesses involved, those businesses are basically going to be closed for a week, and so, I mean, that's got to be recovered somewhere, somehow. Just the logistics of something like that are just mind-boggling. And if somebody was going to do that here in Omaha, I think before checking with Omaha, they just ought to go back and talk to the organizers, because they did do this for several years in Des Moines, and see exactly what the money was over there, and what it cost, what was won or lost, and start at that point, because that would be something similar to probably what they'd find in Omaha as far as spectators and everything.
Brian Fayen on Facebook says that with the 100 extra horsepower, will it throw those drivers off a little bit? So they must have gotten some horsepower back in their engine specs this year, or aerodynamics?
Yeah, they did. It's kind of a balance thing, though. They put a larger spoiler on the back of the car to slow them down. And to keep the speeds up, they gave them more horsepower. Now, this is the same package that they used at Daytona last year and at the 2 Talladega races.
So was this the 400 last year? What would have been usually the Firecracker 400
the
in July
race, and then the 2 Talladega races. So it's going to be similar to what you had in that race. This will be the first race since 1987 that they won't have in the Daytona 500 that they won't have restrictor plates.
Kevin Presky says on Facebook, when ARCA ran over in Des Moines, it lost money.
Yeah, well, that wouldn't surprise me.
No.
I mean, not at all.
Not at all.
Especially for a first-year deal. I mean, I'd be willing to bet that ARCA loses money at almost every venue. I mean, ARCA's not a big money-making deal and never has been. But to
me, it's in the same boat as single A, double A baseball. I mean, triple A baseball is lucky to make money. I know the Omaha Royals do very well for themselves, but they're the rarity in the bunch.
Well, and I mean, the Truck Series, was not a big money maker.
Right.
It had a few races. One race I remember 60,000 people, but all the tickets were giveaways, so it wasn't like it sold out. And I think Iowa Speedway's first back then nationwide race, where they literally sold out and then had temporary bleachers and everything else, 60+ thousand people. That race had to make some money, but I don't think on a regular basis Iowa Speedway's making money, which is sad because it's a wonderful venue.
Yeah, absolutely. And hopefully, if they get a NASCAR race in they get a Cup Series race in 2021, that'll turn around quickly. I've had fans tell me a lot of times, they've said, "Oh, we're big NASCAR fans. We don't really like Kansas. We love Richmond. We love Martinsville." And I'm like, why don't you guys go to Iowa? And, well, we won't go unless the Cup Series is there. I literally turned around to him and I go, you're being short-sighted and you're cutting yourself.
Well, you're part of the problem.
Right. I mean, they're not going to bring a Cup Series race there when there's the place holds 35, 40?
40,000, I think.
And I would bet the last couple of 4 or 5 times they've averaged maybe 15.
Oh, I didn't even think it was that much.
Not even?
Yeah, but
if
they were getting $30,000 in their $40,000 house or 40,000 seat house, they could justify trying to put a Cup race in there. Mm-hmm. But selling out, and I don't think they're selling 10,000 seats, to be honest with you.
Maybe there's 15, but they give away so many tickets. Who knows?
I've been saying it since I heard last summer that they're bringing the modifieds in there, those East Coast modifieds. They weren't running IndyCar-sized tire and weigh as much as, a little bit more than an IndyCar, but good horsepower engines. When they go to a track like New Hampshire, they had to put restrictor plates on these cars at New Hampshire.
Yeah, and that's going to be an exciting race.
That race is going to be one that you and I are going to watch that race.
Well, I hope so. I really hope we're going over to that race weekend. My work is working doing everything they can to mess up my race schedule. So hopefully we won't have any problems with that race weekend.
Well, I'm going whether you go or not.
Brian says if a Cup weekend would come, I assume he means Iowa with ARCA, that would help a lot. Oh, absolutely. I don't know if it would help ARCA, but it would definitely help Iowa Speedway. I think that first couple of races with the Cup Series at Iowa Speedway would sell out. I think after race 4, maybe 5, you'd start to see that typical trickle-down effect.
Well, it just depends on how the racing is.
Well, the Xfinity Series race has been amazing, but the fans just continue to not support that race, which is frustrating.
Well, the one thing that was bad about Iowa's schedule, in my opinion, that they have, I think, rectified, if I'm not mistaken, for 2020 was having the first weekend on Father's Day.
Yeah.
I think they've changed that this year. I think they're running a week after Father's Day, or a week before. One way or the other, I think they moved it off of Father's Day, which I think will be a big plus.
Lori, one of our great friends, Lori, who takes photos for us at Kansas and Iowa, says, oh, yeah, fingers crossed for a Cup Series race at Iowa. Keep the comments coming. We love to talk to you. Don't forget, sitting over there in the orange on Facebook Live is Mr. Fantasy Chad Robb. If you guys are getting into a fantasy league, you're going to want to go to fantasyracingtips.com.
Yes.
That's the URL for Chad's website. It's $75 for an annual membership.
Yes.
And it's well worth it, especially if you are in any payout leagues,
Like
anything like that,
FanDuel.
right? Or you're over in Iowa throwing some money on a race.
Yeah.
Talk to Chad, give him some, because you were the one that gave me the tip on Kyle Larson, and that almost paid off for me.
Almost paid off.
One race shy. I think if he could have qualified for Homestead, it'd have been a whole other game. But, we never do know. But fantasyracingtips.com for more information on that. This is going to cause a little bit of an uproar, and I'm absolutely excited about talking about it. NASCAR and the teams are nearing a renewal of the charter agreement. When NASCAR originally implemented it, it was a 5-year deal going from 2016 to 2020 with an option for a 4-year renewal period that would cover 21, 22, 23, and 24. Obviously, as I read that might be a little bit of a mistype, but the 5-year deal would go 16 to 21, and in 2020, they would have an option to renew it for an additional 4 years. It seems like they are close to renewing this deal. For the most part, I don't have a problem with the charter system. I think that it is actually helping NASCAR because of the fact that we have talked about the shrinking car counts. But those cars, those teams that have a charter, the 36 teams that have a charter, we have never dipped below 36. I think without a charter, we would have been down to 34, maybe 33 at a certain time, maybe a race or two, maybe 4 or 5 in the season.
I don't agree with you wholeheartedly. I would literally have to go back and look, but I don't ever think we've got down to a race with just the 36 charter teams. I think we've always had 37 plus. And
we'd have to look back and make sure. But my gut tells me we've been there a couple of times at 36.
Maybe a couple, but usually it's
30, 38, 39 is kind of the norm. 43 in Daytona this week. And the bad part is I'm pretty much going to guarantee you that there were 3 of those cars that qualified faster than some of those 36 that are guaranteed a spot.
Right.
And that's where the problem comes in. And I saw it happen when they first started doing this. It happened on a regular basis. The team that really complained about it was Michael Waltrip Racing when they didn't make a field one year, and Aaron's and Napa were real upset.
Michael Waltrip Racing, I don't believe they've been around since the implementation of the charter system.
But they were the ones that kind of started the motion of these sponsors need to be in the races deal because it was their sponsors that were complaining.
And to my understanding, it was Rob Kaufman who was one of the part owners. He was mad because basically Michael Waltrip Racing was folding. And he went and said, I have nothing to prove for the millions of dollars and the time I've put into this sport. If any other sport, and I know you hate it when we compare any other sports because they're sticking balls to NASCAR and you can't really compare a lot of it. I think in this sense you can, where if somebody decides they want to sell the Oakland Raiders, they've got millions of dollars in value that they can sell that team. If somebody decides they want to sell a NASCAR team, prior to 2016, they had used equipment in a shop that really a team could say, I'm going to build a brand new one and I don't need your stuff. I can just go out there and race. So I remember Rob Kaufman making a big deal about it because he was basically on the way out the door and he had nothing to show for it. And when NASCAR created this system in the offseason of 15 to 16, all of a sudden, Michael Waltrip Racing had a charter because they qualified for the system and they sold their charter to somebody else, and Rob Kaufman joined another team.
But it's been a problem that was addressed long before. I think the first person to actually address it was Ray Everham. When he opened his race shop there, and I think they actually started building stuff in 2000. Their cars hit the track in 2001 when Dodge came back in, and he sold part of his ownership and stuff just to have money in the bank, the same way Jack Roush has sold part of his stuff to the Fenway family. Mm-hmm. That was money Jack Roush put in his pocket. That money didn't go into the race team.
Right. Absolutely.
And
the other reason I like the charter system is because I think it has massively benefited Starcom Racing to where they own a charter, they get a larger piece of the overall purse because of the fact that they own a charter. Jimmy Johnson and the 48 team, wherever that 48 team charter goes, it will garnish a larger piece of the prize, a larger piece of the purse, because he's a past champion, he's got longevity. There's like 4 or 5 things that 48 team charter qualifies for.
Yeah, but the past champion is a driver.
Oh, yeah. So
that's got nothing to do with the charter system. Well, it's got something to do with the system because if they hire Bobby Labonte to drive the car, then obviously they'll get the past champion deal. But the 48 charter's not going anywhere.
No, it basically rewards teams for longevity and consistency, which is something that I know Joe Koziski has battled with the Malvern Bank Super Late Model Series for the first several years that it was open. He was trying to think of ways to, how do I get these drivers to follow me around and come to my races more often? And this NASCAR had created it. And I don't know if he's implemented any of these pieces to basically pay back to some of these guys, but I do like the charter system. There are some negatives to it. I give you that. Absolutely. It's unfair when 43rd is faster than 35th, but 43rd's on the hauler home.
And it's a thing I think the charter really misjudged and misplaced was the Wood Brothers team, who never qualified for a charter because they had fell on some hard times, but they had more starts than probably 80% of the charter teams.
Yeah, they went part-time for a certain amount of time, and the year that they had started the charter, I believe it was 2016, was the first year they came back and ran full-time, and they were basically sitting there going, we are your oldest active team. How about a little bit of love? And I believe that they have a charter now. I don't know where. I'll have to look back in my notes of where it came from, but I do believe they own a charter now.
Yeah, I think they bought one since when the rest were all given.
Right. And it's, you're talking about a couple $1 million as far as we're able to track. Starcom Racing would never give us a solid figure, but you gotta imagine that when you buy that charter for the first time, that's it. You own the charter. You pay no more fees to NASCAR for that charter. NASCAR doesn't get any money for that charter at all. There's no sanctioning fees or anything that comes along with that charter transaction.
And at least those small teams like the Starcom can go up to sponsors and say, look,
exactly,
we have a charter. We're locked into every race. Your name's going to be on the car for 36 races. That's got to help.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Got a couple more news and notes, some really good stuff. We're seeing some big sponsor announcements. Napa has re-signed. They've given a 2-year sponsor extension with Hendrick Motorsports and the number 9 car of Chase Elliott. I believe, Dirk, you were saying that Exalta re-signed?
Exalta re-signed with the 24 car through 2027 for 14 races.
That's a big contract. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's almost half the season. It's a couple races short of half, but it's kind of unheard of that they went out to 6 years.
Yeah.
It was an extension. I think their current contract went through 2021.
And I believe over the weekend, Kevin Harvick signed a 2-year contract extension with Stewart-Haas Racing. He confirmed last Saturday at Daytona that he had signed a 2-year extension. So you'll see Kevin Harvick in that 4 machine for the 2020 and 2021.
No, he was through 21. The 2 years extended were 22 and 23.
Okay.
And he can still retire, but
yeah.
I think he was just trying to squash rumors that he's going to go out the back door the same year Jimmy Johnson was going out, and he didn't want all the accolades and all that stuff. But, he could still retire after 22 if he decided.
Yeah, absolutely. And
but I don't see it happening. He's one of the egomaniacs out there.
And he's still qualified. I mean, he's not Jimmy Johnson right now. He's not struggling to hit 15th, 20th. He's contending for championships. He's still got a lot of talent left. I would think he's probably got 2 years left before he starts to kind of trickle off and slow down a little bit, and then maybe he considers it. But yeah, absolutely. This is a good move for him. And it's a good deal for Stewart-Haas Racing to be able to say to sponsors, Busch and all the sponsors that they have on the side of that number 4 car, we've got him through these many years, so I would expect to see some contract extensions with those sponsors coming in soon too.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't think Busch is going to go anywhere, they love Kevin Harvick. And some of their commercials now with their Busch Beer guy are awesome.
My favorite is when they ran the paint scheme. I think it was at Phoenix last year when it was Harvick beer. Oh. They said, we're sick and tired of promoting another driver. Yeah. So good news for Kevin Harvick and Stewart-Haas Racing and Harvick fans too. Jimmy Johnson says he is interested in some IndyCar races when his NASCAR career is concluded at the end of this season, 2021. He'd be very interested in racing in IndyCar.
Yep. Well, that's just what I want to do. I'm an IndyCar owner. I want me to get signed up for my car, a retired, washed-up NASCAR driver. That's what I want for my IndyCar team.
I saw on the TV right before I came, he's working out a deal with McLaren.
Really?
To drive one of their cars. It's just
on Formula One?
It's just IndyCar on one of the road courses. He's just going to do the road courses. His wife won't let him do the ovals, I guess.
God, those damn wives. Why get married?
Yeah. Back when I had a short stint, I worked for Gallup doing the poll stuff.
Yeah.
I actually had to call Chandra Johnson one time, and it was in North Carolina, and there can't be too many of them in North Carolina. I got about 2 words out of my mouth. I mentioned Gallup, and the phone clicked.
How rude.
I wanted to take the phone number home. I was actually calling for her cell phone provider, which was U.S. Cellular at the time.
You weren't calling to extend her car warranty?
No, I've got a lousy Indian accent. But, I could have taken her phone number home and made all kinds of funny calls to her and had friends doing it and everything else. Probably sold it and put it on eBay and sold her phone number, like they did with Carl Edwards' business card when he first got in the Cup.
How about Brian says, how about Ricky Stenhouse, driver of the number 47 car, on the pole for today's race? Big step up from where he was. The thing I like about Daytona, it's one of the few things I like about Daytona. I think it's an equalizer. The small teams and the big teams basically have an equal opportunity to win here. I like Ricky at super speedways. He's had a little bit of a tough go of it of late, kind of ruffling some feathers, so maybe he's hurt some feelings to where they're not going to cut him a break if he decides to slide down and block. They're going to stick their nose in there and send him to the infield or something like that. But good job for Ricky, absolutely. Kudos to him in that 47 car. First year in that 47 car with JTG Doherty Racing, and he's showing that he's got some chops behind that 47 wheel.
It kind of proves what Jimmy Johnson's, it kind of throws him out the window as far as, Chevy having problems right off the bat, because that car's a Chevy.
Right, absolutely.
And they got the new nose on them, so they can match bumpers, and they should be able to do a little bump drafting a lot better than they could the last couple of years. So,
Chad, what do you think about Ricky starting on the pole? Does it really matter? I mean, he's going to lead the first probably 50, 60 laps.
When you look at Ricky Stenhouse, he's one of the most aggressive drivers on the track, and he's going to do everything he can to stay up front as long as he can. But the problem is his aggressiveness usually gets him in trouble.
Mm-hmm.
And these Chevys don't have the handling that the Fords did. And if he got in that much trouble with the Ford, I'm kind of worried about how much problems he's going to have in the Chevy. Yes, they do have the new Camaro ZL1, 1LE, whatever car.
My sentiments exactly. I can't even keep track.
They said that they got new nose, but the word out of the garage is that the nose still isn't, flat like a Ford is. So if he gets aggressive, starts pushing and everything like that, he might find himself in a lot of trouble.
Especially with his teammates. His manufacturer partners.
It all depends on what kind of game you're playing, really, with Ricky. If you're playing in a game where you get bonus points for lead laps and stuff like that, and you can only use drivers so many times during the season, he's a good pick because he's probably going to lead the first lap at least, get you some bonus points. But for games like DraftKings and stuff like that, starting first, if he crashes early and finishes last, he's going to score you so many place differential points,
so many
negative ones. He's going to kill you. So
I think he's going to lead at least the first stage. I think that first stage is going to be very calm.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, there were so many drivers that tore up cars during the clash that they're going to get through the first stage and at least try to get themselves 10 bonus points.
Yeah, but now with the stages changing laps, that's going to change the fuel strategy. So the pit stops are going to be different. And we saw the other day, that when you saw different fuel strategies, you saw some teams pitting after 30 laps in the second. It wasn't even the second stage, but they had that, competition caution at lap 25. So then when they went back to the track, you had one group that was going to try and make it on fuel mileage, which was going to be crazy because I don't think they could do that. But the other group, went ahead and pitted early, so they had plenty of time to catch back up, and they were starting to fly by them, and that's when
the carnage started.
Went crazy.
Ricky's got a Hendrick engine under his hood this year, and he's got Bowman starting right next to him. So I look for them two to work together. One of them's going to take the lead, the other one's going to duck behind him, and they're just going to follow the leader until it's time to pit.
It's a very tricky thing for Alex Bowman to say, you qualified on the pole, so why don't you take the lead going into turn one? Because Bowman has to time when he throttles up to allow Ricky to get out, but then he's got to deal with the guy that would have qualified in third place, locking him out. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they work that out. And that's always kind of a fun thing for me there's these little nuances that are so that to the everyday person that just doesn't understand racing and doesn't understand NASCAR, and that was me 15 years ago when I first started watching it. My eyes have been opened up to how insignificant things affect these drivers, like, for instance, how to get into second place for Alex Bowman and to be able to push his manufacturer partner.
Well, and the guy that ends up behind Stenhouse could very well be a Hendrick car.
Right.
I bet you it's a Joe Gibbs car.
Well, yeah.
if I'm a betting man, I gotta say that 11 car is lined up right behind him.
And so we'll get to Chad's top picks for today as far as winning the race and who's your best pick. But the one other thing I wanted to talk about, I watched a video, a post-medical center interview with Brad Keselowski, who was very frustrated about the way that whole wreck went down. And he said that he has echoed something that I think more and more drivers are saying, but they don't necessarily mean it. So he said, take the helmets off, take the seat belts out of these cars so someone gets hurt and maybe we'll stop driving like assholes. Obviously, nobody wants to get hurt, but I go back to an interview a long time ago in the media center with Tony Stewart, and one of the media reps said, are these cars too safe? And Tony got all sorts of upset. And I thought it was a dumb question at the time, too, but every time one of these things pops up, I come back and think about the same situation. Maybe these cars are too safe. You can't put that toothpaste back in the tube at this point.
You can't jeopardize safety, but the problem with Keselowski is he's one of the best super speedway drivers, and he's had a really tough time finishing any of these races.
Oh, he was
the last
hot.
couple years. And when you're that good, you have the talent to win these races, and guys keep taking you out.
Yep.
It's got to be making him upset.
FantasyRacingTips.com for information on Chad. Who are your top picks for the Daytona 500?
Well, you got to go with Denny Hamlin and Joey Logano. They're by far the two best drivers. Luckiest? I don't know. But they always finish in the top 5 in this race. If you want some sleeper picks, Ryan Newman. He's got the best average finish here in the last 3 years. Ryan Blaney, I think he's really got a good shot at winning.
Penske horsepower, Penske teammates.
Yeah.
And good at super speedways.
He works really good with Logano and Keselowski if he could stay in the race. Now they got DiBenedetto with him.
Yeah, what about him? What about Matty D? We talked to him last weekend, and I liked him in that 95 car. What do you think he's going to be able to do in the 21?
I think he'll do all right. Really, I think that Joe Gibbs has a big advantage today. They had their president of TRD on the morning drive last week, and he said, we are not worried about qualifying. He said, we have focused everything on handling, and when we get to Daytona 500, we're going to have the best handling cars in the field. And he said, good luck keeping up with us. And when you watch the Clash race, he was right. Those cars could move through the field a lot better than all the other ones.
Yeah.
So I look for the Joe Gibbs cars to really, really dominate this race.
Dirk, what do you think about the 21 for Matty D?
Well, his qualifying effort left a little to be desired. I think he hit the board 16th. Would have hoped it would have been a little better. But, it's a new driver, new crew chief combination. We've talked a million times about how those kind of got to gel a little bit. So Roush Yates Engines makes all the Ford engines. Penske doesn't have their own engine program, so they're making all the Ford engines. All the Ford engines in Harvick's cars over at Stewart Haas, those all come from Roush Yates. They do everything with Ford. So I don't think the Ford horsepower is as big a deal as it was the last few years. And Toyota got a year under their belt. You saw how good they were the second half of last year. Even though Denny Hamlin won the 500 last year, Toyota was not the dominant force in that race. Everybody else pretty much crashed out. And Hamlin hadn't won for 47 races. That's why somebody picked him in the pool. But
All right, so that's going to do it for us in turn number 1. We thank everybody for tuning in on Facebook. Don't forget, FantasyRacingTips.com for more information from Chad. You can also follow him on Facebook and Twitter for up-to-the-minute information. Subscribe to Chad's website. He does a great job with it. Great tips, great information. And even if you're a part of the Pick'ems contest, you absolutely want to subscribe to that because you could get some awesome prizes at the end of the year just by following Chad's tips and taking your drivers, getting into the postseason, getting into the playoffs, and qualifying in that that top 16. Daytona 500 party still to come. We're going to talk about that in turn number 4. Clint Bowyer just around the corner in turn 2. Corey Zeitner in turn number 3. We'll be back with Chad. More
Powder coating your chassis seems like a luxury until you spill nearly anything on it and watch as the paint drips away. That's when you'll wonder why you didn't take advantage of Red Oak Fabrication's high-quality, durable, and beautiful powder coating for just $275 on a bare chassis. From simple base colors to glitter-line neon colors, a powder-coated chassis from Red Oak Fabrication will give you a much more durable surface that your sponsors will love seeing in Victory Lane. Email Jordan F. at redoakfabrication.com to book your time.
Every race car driver has run into the same problem. It's well past normal parts store closing hours, but you need that one to finish your car. The guys who brought you White Knuckle Racing by the River bring you Joe's Karting Racing Parts and Tire Store. Open until 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday and open until 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. A parts store that fits your after-hours schedule, and you can turn a few laps at Joe's Karting while you're waiting for your part to get pulled from their warehouse. joeskarting.com for more information.
We're hooked up in turn 2 and still showing the green flag on the front stretch.
Welcome back to the front stretch, rolling into turn number 2, and it's time to have a conversation with the guy who's going to be on the starting grid for today's Daytona 500. Clint Bowyer, driver of the number 14 Mobile One Rush Trucking Center's Ford Mustang for Stewart Haas Racing. Clint, welcome to the show.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Clint, it's been a long time getting you on the show. We've been doing this NASCAR talk show in Omaha for about 8 years, and you've definitely been on the top of our list. We appreciate you. It turns out Joe Koziski can't really pull as many strings as he thinks.
Joe's a good guy, man. He's one of my heroes. As soon as I heard Omaha, I was like, that's Koziski country.
That is, absolutely.
Watched that old boy beat up on him my whole childhood.
That's my only regret in dirt racing is that I never got to watch Joe race. I work for him out of I-80 Speedway, and I like to count myself as one of his good friends, but I never got to see him race.
You know, when you talk to Joe, and even when you see Joe, and not that there's, drivers fit a template anyway, right? That's what makes our sport cool of motorsports is like everybody's just unique. And when I see Joe and talk to him, he just doesn't have a mean bone in his body. But, man, I'm telling you what, he put a helmet on him and he got behind the wheel. That dude was an animal.
Did you race against him?
A couple times.
Yeah. How'd you do?
Probably got beat. And unless he came to Lakeside, then I beat him. I guarantee you. If he came over there, there's a good chance I beat him.
I'd love to watch that replay just one time. Well, man, you got a big day lined up for you today, but I want to talk. We're obviously the big question when we're talking to you about it is, have you fully recovered from celebrating from the Chiefs' victory?
Yeah, so cool, man. I don't think anybody's ever going to recover from that. I know the 49ers aren't. What a cool thing to witness. Your favorite team being in the Super Bowl is in a nutshell cool enough, but then to see him win that thing in that fashion, to pull it out at the end, I was sitting around a bunch of 49er fans, and they were getting chirpy, and I'm not going to lie, I was starting to get nervous. I'm like, there's no way this story ends like this. And, oh, my gosh, boy, did it turn around in a big way. It was so fun.
So tell me, are you okay with the Kansas City Chiefs representing the great state of Kansas?
Hey, man, I get it. It's funny. I don't know. But everything's under a microscope in our world, and I couldn't imagine the microscope that guy's in. I mean, jeez.
Yeah. I know.
It's some self-inflicted, obviously, with a lot of it, but I mean, it's just anybody. Any one of those guys that have ever sat in that seat, just unbelievable.
You've been
might show up. Did you hear that?
I heard that, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see.
It really said cool. Definite today is what it said.
Ooh.
Oh, it did?
Yeah. We'll see. Who knows? The Secret Service may pull that plug at the last minute. I don't know if they're very happy about that getting out, that he's going to be there, because they always like to keep that stuff pretty under wraps.
Yeah, I have no idea how that got leaked, but it seems to be the case for him.
It was some airport worker in Daytona where this little airport that they scheduled to land in. He was the one that leaked it.
Yeah.
Well, the airport's on the back straightaway at Daytona. It is the airport.
Okay.
You can go play. Hey, if you start rolling in an iron like he's got, it's kind of need a big
it's obvious.
One.
Why are we shutting down the concourse number 2 on Sunday?
Exactly.
Coming back to the Chiefs' victory, you've been very fortunate that a lot of sports fans, especially Kansas City Chiefs and Kansas City Royals fans, haven't got to see a lot of victories in their day. And in a short period of time, you've got to watch both your favorite pro teams win championships.
It was so cool, and I was there for both of them, and just to see that, it really opens your eyes the difference that it makes in a city. You know what I mean? And just the fan base is obviously there. That kingdom's there, and then all of a sudden they win, and my gosh, that parade and just the difference that it makes in everybody's demeanor, the pride. I mean, Kansas City is now the pride of America right now. I mean, it's on the map in a big way.
Did you get to meet Mahomes when he was at Kansas Speedway a couple of years ago?
Yeah, I met a version of him. It would have been like him meeting me at a Chiefs game. It's not my best Clint.
Well, let's talk a little bit of racing. You've got a couple of changes coming for this year, and hopefully those changes are going to bring about some wins. When acquiring a new crew chief, did Stewart-Haas Racing kind of sit down with you and have a discussion about bringing Johnny on board? Was that your idea? Did you have any input at all?
Well, I think we all knew that, hey, we had a good year. We didn't have a great year. And, 3 years of doing it, it's time to sort some things out. The window of opportunity is so small in our sport. It comes down to communication and making the right decisions, and more importantly, making them in the right time before the next guy has a chance to. It's so hard to do, beat that guy to the punch. So all of that, moving the personnel around. I mean, it wasn't just the what you see on the pit box. It's pit crews, over the wall crews that are changing the tires. That you see on Sunday. It was a lot of change and just trying to shake things up to make all that line of communication more thorough, not just with the 14 car, but everybody all across the board in Stewart-Haas.
And it's nothing to say against Mike Bugaravich. He's a good crew chief. I think he deserves it. But it's really interesting to me watching the dynamic because, you can have a top caliber driver and a top caliber crew chief and finish 15th in the points because they just didn't jive.
Oh, absolutely. And for me and Mike, he's just crazy smart. I mean, his engineering ability, and mindset is just polar opposites from mine. I grew up the old blue-collar guy that, if you beat him, it's because you went to the racetrack and figured it out, the old-fashioned way, probably the long way around the tree, and that's just my mindset. And these guys today, a crew chief is heavily engineered and every thought is engineered, and it's not, on a whim, and it's not, it's just, it just didn't, we didn't speak the same language, so to speak, and I feel like you have to do that because if you're going to beat them to the punch to that magical moment, that game time decision, that's what you got to do. You got extremely smart people that are working together, and a lot of them are been together for a long time, been doing it. So if you expect to beat them to that decision, you better have your stuff together, and that's what we're trying to do.
You mean the crew chief just doesn't sit up there in that box and flip a coin half the time?
Nah. No, there's a lot of planning and strategizing before we ever get there and things like that. I mean, when that driver's just complaining about being loose or tight in the car, that's the smallest part of his decision. He's got to, not only does he got to figure out what adjustment it takes to overcome whatever I'm complaining about, he's got to figure in now today's day and age of how long that'll take, what decision to make the right decision to take the least amount of time on pit road. Because that takes time, too. Oh, by the way, you can't come in and make your car 0.2 faster and lose 4 spots on pit road because you made the adjustment. I mean, there's just so many decisions that have to be made, and I mean right now.
Yeah, it is definitely becoming a much more difficult job sitting up on top of that pit box, and hopefully you and Johnny can mesh well together. Kind of a psychological question a little bit. Would you rather pick up 4 wins in a season and finish 12th in the points, or no wins and finish 5th in the points?
I hate these questions. That's a terrible question. I want all of it. I want to lead the most laps. I want to win every race, and I want to win the championship. But I tell you, a race I don't want to win more than anything, it's this weekend, this Sunday, the Daytona 500. That's the one that's on my map.
Well, there's only been, 60 people or 61 people that have won it? 60 people?
Well, I want it to be the 62nd, and I want to party. I want to show them boys in Kansas City exactly what a party's supposed to look like.
They
did a good job.
They've recovered. They've recovered from the Chiefs' victory. It's time to make them hurt again from a Bowyer Daytona 500 win.
That's right. We're going to need to set up a temporary hospital in Victory Lane.
Your post-driving career is looming on the horizon. You kind of touched on a little bit that you feel like it's go time in your career. You got to start knocking off these wins and getting real competitive for that championship. If you had your choice, who would sit down in that 14 car once you're finally said and done?
I don't know. I haven't even thought about that. I mean, I want to continue racing as long as I can, and the answer to that is as long as you're competitive. What I mean? I think all of us have a shelf life. There's no question about that, but I don't think mine's over. I really don't. I think the shelf life comes when your drive's over. I really don't think it's just you just can't drive anymore. I think your focus and your attention and everything else goes by the wayside. Your ability doesn't, and I believe that. I feel like just things become more important in your life over the years, and you've been chasing this Jimmy Johnson. I mean, look how long he's been chasing this grueling schedule and doing it better than anybody else. That means I know how hard I'm working. That cat won 7 championships. That boy put in a lot of work, and he earned the right to want to quit. I don't think that he just can't drive anymore. I know it. It's not that. It's his focus and where he's at in his life. He's satisfied with his career, which, my God, I'd hope so.
He's not, though. He's not, though. He wants 8.
No.
And if he had 8, he'd want 9.
Yeah.
That's right. That's exactly right. I guarantee you he's more than satisfied with tying 2 legends and a name like Dale Earnhardt and another name like Richard Petty.
Yeah.
I damn sure would be.
So you're not going to bill yourself quite yet as the next Morgan Shepherd?
No.
So I want to ask one more question about your post-career, because I think it'd be interesting. I certainly hope that when you do decide to retire, you don't turn into like a Carl Edwards that just kind of disappeared. Hopefully your plans include maybe expanding your late model team, maybe buying a track or 2, getting a truck series team going. Have you kind of started working on those plans?
To be honest with you, I signed a deal with Fox to do some stuff with them, calling some Xfinity racing and stuff like that. I'm excited about that. But just selling our sport, I think it's so much to give. I think it's such a fun sport. I think some of the lost things, as we see again in television and things like that, is how much fun those people in the stands are seeing, and I feel like that's an opportunity for me to tell that story through their eyes and showcase some more of what's going on in any race event, not just the race on Sunday, because there's way more going on than that. And people that come here and on a consistent basis realize that. So that's something I'm interested in. And, honestly, one of my favorite things to do every weekend is get on a golf cart and see how fans take in our sport. Everybody's different. Some people come in on Sunday and watch it just on Sunday, buy a shirt, and are satisfied. Other guys show up and they're Winnebago, borrowed Winnebago, stole Winnebago, whatever the case may be. They're in there in the infield. I mean, I've literally seen motorhomes towed to the racetrack. It wouldn't run.
Yeah.
Just tow it there and drop it off and come pick the damn thing up when we're done if there's anything left of it. I mean, all of that. It takes all of us, and that's a fun aspect of it. So even on the track side of it, I think it'd be a lot of fun to be able to do something like that. So I don't know. I think there's room for everybody, and I'll figure that out when it's time. But for now, we'll figure out how to win this Daytona 500.
Well, good luck to you, man. We appreciate the extra time. Tell Jasmine I'm sorry. She's called me 3 times, and I can't wait to find out what she called me on my voicemail. You'll see it today for the Daytona 500.
I think that's her here, but I don't know. I haven't met her yet either.
Is she turning a little red?
Yeah.
All right, driver number 14, Stewart Haas Racing. Thanks, Clint. Have a great one.
All right, good luck, Clint.
Yeah, she called me 3 times, missing. And by the way, Jasmine was the handler for NASCAR. That it's her responsibility to make sure he calls on time and he hangs up on time. Well, he was a couple of minutes late with us, so we kind of went a couple of minutes late. Now there's some radio station in the other part of the country that didn't get any time. And I don't feel bad at all.
So am I going to have to go look for an email from Matt?
Yep. Yeah.
You guys are cut off.
Matt and Jasmine are going to be a little upset with us. Clint Bowyer driving the number 14 Stewart Haas Racing Chevrolet Mobile One Rush Trucking Center's Ford Mustang. You'll see him on the starting grid for today. Hopefully Clint has a good Daytona 500. He's never really seemed to be a great super speedway racer, but it only takes once. And I would love to go down to that party in Emporia, Kansas, when he wins that Daytona 500 someday. That interview with Clint Bowyer brought to you by Red Oak Fabrication. Fabrication. All interviews on the Front Stretch brought to you by Red Oak Fabrication. Affordable powder coating and quality powder coating just down the road in Red Oak, Iowa on the intersection of Highway 48 and Highway 34. RedOakFabrication.com. You can get a free estimate on how much money Jordan and everyone at Red Oak Fabrication could save you on powder coating by just emailing Jordan F at RedOakFabrication.com. Jordan F at RedOakFabrication.com. $275 for a bare frame. That could be a late model. That could be a sprint car. Nick Dice of Tuxedo Raceway Park, which I can never get it right, went down there and he got a bunch of his chassis done. Affordable price. He's going to be running those carts at TRP, Tuxedo Raceway Park, this coming year. So he took advantage of the Red Oak Fabrication discount on the powder coating. You can too. RedOakFabrication.com for more information. We're going to take a break. Corey Zeitner just around the corner on the Front Stretch.
We all have that coworker that runs their mouth off at how great they are. They shot a 5 under par, 95-mile-an-hour fastball, bench press 375, brah. Wouldn't you love to shut them up by schooling them at Joe's Karting? Council Bluffs' premier indoor karting track, professionally designed so each corner is your opportunity to embarrass your coworker. Call Buddy for your next company outing at 712-256-5278. Joe's Karting, white knuckle racing just across the river on 23rd Avenue next to AMC 17.
If you love wings, if you love rings, and all kinds of other tempting things, great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Quaker Steak and Lube is the official watering hole of the Front Stretch and the home of MAV TV, featuring action from the Lucas Oil Late Model Series.
Great times, great food, get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Located on Mid-America Drive in Council Bluffs.
Feather the brake and get back to the gas. Dan and Dirk are headed into turn 3 on the Front Stretch.
Welcome back to the Front Stretch. Time for another Red Oak Fabrication interview. We're sitting down with the Malvern Bank Series drivers. Don't forget, if you need to get your chassis powder coated for an affordable price, boy, I've heard anywhere from $500 to $800 to have a bare frame powder coated. $275 down in Red Oak, Iowa, on the intersection of Highway 48 and Highway 34 in Red Oak, Iowa. You can get your chassis powder coated for an affordable price. Dirk, we could go through the list of benefits for getting your chassis powder coated. One of the big ones is corrosive resistant. How many times has Corey Zeitner spilled something on the chassis and all of a sudden that spray painted chassis just melted away?
Yeah, beer doesn't do that.
Oh, okay. But you can get your chassis powder coated, durable, beautiful looking frame for just $275. That's a bare frame. If you need to have any sandblasting done or reworking, you can have an estimate by just emailing Jordan F at RedOakFabrication.com. Imagine getting your late model chassis powder coated for just $275. You could buy another couple of tires for as much as you're saving at Red Oak Fabrication.
Yeah, just a few.
Just a few. Corey Zeitner joining us on the show now. Raced several different versions of race cars throughout the area. Currently racing the super late model in the Malvern Bank Super Late Model Series. Corey, thanks for coming on the show, bud.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a while.
It has been quite a while. Now, I want to say the last time we had you on the show was when we came down to Zeitner Trucking and did the whole Zeitner family.
Most of the Zeitner
Yeah,
clan.
most of the family was on the show.
Heck for not getting them all.
There's a lot of them. I mean, you guys are basically...
you got your own feature.
You're mirrors to the Kaziskis. I mean, if there's 20 Kaziskis running around out there, there's 20 Zeitners running around out there. It's a big, thick family is what I'm saying. A healthy tree.
And from what my notes say, I believe 3 of those Zeitners, including Corey, are victors on the Malvern Bank Series all time.
Mm-hmm.
How about that?
Including Corey, currently sitting, he's tied for 4th on the all-time win list.
That ain't too bad.
That ain't too bad.
Yeah, he's, I believe, according to my notes, you're tied with 2-time series champion Travis Stickus on that list.
Yeah, Travis ain't been out there for a while, so if he was, he might have me beat.
But he doesn't now, and you've got that. Speaking of 4th place, finished 4th in the series in 2019. Kind of give us a rundown of your thoughts on how the 2019 season went for you in the Malvern Bank Series.
It was up and down. Started out kind of slow. We got a new car, and opening night was pretty good. Then I think it was a 2-day show, and the second night we kind of faded. And then the second night we were just out of the ballpark, and just a lot of ups and downs.
Yeah, that's kind of a race season in a nutshell, and really a championship is built on how you handle the downs along with the ups, and how you would, it sounds like such a cliche, but how you handle adversity, because it's going to come in a series like Malvern Bank series.
Oh yeah, anywhere you race, one day you're the hero, and then the next night you don't even make the show. It just shows how good the competition is out there.
Did you have any consistent issues, just missing setups every now and then? Did you have some engine problems? Was it just a little bit of everything?
We right after the Silver Dollar, we got in a wreck, rolled the car. So we was out with that car for 2 or 3 weeks, and we had to get my dad's car out, which was an older Masterbuilt, and just kind of threw it together and wasn't what we hoped. So that kind of put us behind a little bit. And then later in the year, we blew a motor. Had to put our backup in, which is never good as your primary one. So that kind of hurt us a little bit.
Wasn't little things, it was major issues.
Yeah.
Rolling a car, I consider that a major issue. So
yeah, it definitely took us out for that night, and then a few nights after that. And we're finishing 4th in points, and where we're at, it's...
For all those issues, finishing 4th in points is pretty dang good.
Yep.
I think that probably says a lot to the ways you were able to finish the races that you didn't have any issues.
Yeah, and it's been fun. Of course, 2A feature wins this year on the Malvern Bank Tour for Corey this year, and I believe both of those wins were his first Malvern Bank wins at those tracks. And of course, first one being on the 4th of July at US 30 Speedway, first time winning there, and the second one, first win at Shelby County, a track he's had a lot of laps on that track as well. But it all came together. And here's the thing: of the 50 combined laps. Between those two features, Corey led 45 of those 50 laps. He only missed the first 5 at US 30. Otherwise, he was out in front the whole time.
Yeah, US 30 was... that was...
There's the shout out there.
Yeah, we had to get to the lead early because, it was going to not so much rubber up, but it was going to get clean in one lane. And as long as we got the lead, I didn't do nothing stupid, we were going to win that. And then the win at Harlan, that was kind of nerve-wracking because there was we'd go 2 laps and have a caution, and I didn't know if we was going to make it on fuel. And then you got Kyle behind me, and then just watch the scoreboard, and then Justin shows up, and then he on the restart he slid me, and it's like, this ain't gonna be good. So luckily I was able to turn underneath him and get the lead back, and as long as I just hit my marks, it was gonna be all right.
You kind of mentioned Justin a little bit there, and I kind of talked a little bit like the similarities between you and the Kaziskis, that it seems like half the field is family when you're either a Zeitner or a Kaziski, and you're going to have issues with your competitors. Does it make it harder that it's family, or does it make it easier because they understand where you're coming from?
I don't know. I don't know if it makes it easier. I think family, you want to, we definitely want to beat each other, but... we've been working pretty good together. For him to come from where he came, I think he started at 8th or 10th or so, and to come up there and get the 3rd and 2nd and then slide me, I thought he had to be pretty good. So just luckily we was able to get back around him.
And you guys have raced very well together. Other family members just seem to get in each other's way, and it just seems to be a magnet. But do you feel like you guys have a pretty good racing relationship where you're able to have level of respect, or has there been times where it's been a little bit suspect?
Oh, there's times it's been suspect, but
let's talk about those times. No, I'm just kidding. We don't need to bring that stuff up.
Yeah.
To say the last couple of times that you've been there, 2019, believe it or not, it was Corey's second season with multiple feature wins, first one since 2015. Back when he won 2 features out at Raceway Park as well as Adams County Speedway. And like I mentioned before, currently sitting 4th on the all-time win list with Travis Dickus at 7 apiece. And of the 7 wins, the 7 times you've gone to victory lane with the Malvern Bank Series, is there one of those wins that really stands out above all the rest? Or what was probably your most favorite time going to victory lane?
Man, I don't know. I think these 2 this year, are pretty special. It's because it's been 2 years since I've gotten one. Raceway, that was a good one. And I don't know.
A man of many words.
Yeah,
it was a good one.
I always like one of the lines I say about Corey a lot. He doesn't say much. He'd much rather let his driving do the talking for him, and more times than not, it does. But one other thing that I've seen over the past couple of years, Corey, I think, has consistently not only has finished in the top 5 in the points and consistently brings in good finishes, he is consistently probably one of the guys who brings in some of the nicest looking cars on the Malvern Bank Tour. And I remember a couple of years back, you brought that white, red, and black color scheme up to Eagle. That was a gorgeous car. The new number 19 looks spot on each and every time. I remember that black, purple, and gold scheme you had, was it 2 years ago? You took the win out at Rock Rapids. Where do you come up with these great designs? Because these are definitely some of the best looking late models on the Malvern Bank Tour.
We just got good rap, artists. Matt Witchman, he did pretty good, and then Dre was working for him. He designed a few, and then Dre did this last one.
So we got to give Dre Hempel a little credit.
A little bit.
We don't like to do that.
Yeah, he does pretty good. He's got a lot of good cars out there.
Yeah, he does a good job with some of that stuff.
So you had your calendar out circling dates for 2020 yet? Some must-see races or must-enter races, and what do you got scheduled?
We'll probably run most of the West stuff. The only thing is that whole 5-day swing, just kind of see where we're sitting. It's a lot of races in a row.
Yeah.
But
so going after that Malvern Bank title again. Any weekly racing on the schedule, or?
I don't know. We might pop in here and there. I don't think we're going to run for points. With all the SLMR stuff we can do, I think that'll keep us plenty busy.
Well, it probably doesn't help that you got a daughter that's racing now, so now you got to not only get your car ready, you got to get a goat kart ready on Thursday night probably.
Yeah, that's what's tough. When we race Friday nights, usually we're loading up Thursday night, and so it's kind of hard to get her out there. So maybe that'll free up some time where we can do that.
I was saying, speaking of Mallory, of course, she found a bit of success over the Thanksgiving weekend at the Turkey Chase here just down the road in Lincoln at the Lancaster Event Center. What was that like for you, seeing Mallory take the checker flag in the main event during the Turkey Chase, during one of these big weekends? So what was that like for you?
I was pretty proud. Yeah, she did good. It wasn't like she started on the front row. She the one she had to work for, she got spun out and had to go to the back, and it was like, well, our night's over with. We're going to finish in the back. And
yeah.
I was gonna say, if we got a chance, if we had a chance to interview Mallory after that race, do you think she probably would have given a longer interview?
I don't know.
She's a little girl that's got a lot of things to say, huh?
Oh yeah, she's a wild one.
Yeah.
So that black and pink and white scheme that on that go-kart, hopefully one of those days we'll maybe see it on a late model, but who knows what the future holds.
Are you finding your groove as a racing dad?
It's it's fun. The whole indoor stuff, it's so drawn out, and you're there forever. But it's definitely fun watching her.
It's better than sitting in a Little League baseball game.
Oh yeah, everybody jokes. It's like, we don't want to be here. We're taking too long. But it's like, what else would we be doing? We'd be sitting at home wishing we were doing something else.
Watching football.
Wishing you were at the racetrack.
Yeah.
Corey Zeitner driving the number 19 in 2019. Are you going to be back in the 19 for 2020?
No, I think we're gonna switch back to the 26.
Yeah.
I think where we need to be.
Well, and what was I've been trying to remember for the last day and a half the deal behind the 19. Why did you switch to that one?
Well, my brother-in-law Nick, he owns the car, he owned the hauler, the motor, and everything. And he said he wanted red cars, number 19, and because he used to race hobby stocks back in high school, and he was number 19. So.
Do you put any superstition behind the number? I know some drivers feel like, well, since I'm not my normal number, I can't be winning.
No, I feel you make your own luck most of the time.
Yeah.
So.
Make that in the shop.
Oh yeah.
All right, Corey Zeitner. Do you have a website that people can follow you on, or Facebook page?
Just Facebook, just Corey Zeitner Racing.
How about some of them sponsors that are helping you get up and down the road?
My brother-in-law Nick, Alexander Lawns. He's helped out a lot. Zeitner and Sons, my uncle Leon. Hopshot Henry. That's really about it.
Yeah. The Zeitner and Sons, you guys are growing quite a bit. Do you work there with them?
Yeah, I work in the shop.
Yeah, because I seem to be seeing those semis more and more and more.
Yeah, we've been staying pretty steady about the same number for the past, 5 years or so, but it's a good number.
Maybe it's just I'm starting to notice those giant yellow semis passing me down the interstate.
Yeah, we're pretty much 100% yellow right now.
Yeah.
So before blue, blue kind of blended in.
Yeah, they got one guy that just drives around town. So that's the guy you're
just follows me around.
So you talk about Zeitner and Sons. One of the cool things that Zeitner and Sons does for the Malvern Bank series, they are the official sponsor of our. You see the big winners checks at each and every one of our Malvern Bank series events. I believe even when we took the big $12,000 check out to Farley, Iowa, for the Yankee Dirt Track Classic this year, Zeitner and Sons was on that check, and just about everyone. How does a sponsorship like that come about when you get a chance to sponsor a big victory lane check like that and getting your name with the winner, regardless of who it is? What does that mean to you as a sponsor for the series, as well as for a company man as yourself?
It's it's nice to see it on there. That's really not my department, but it's definitely nice to see your name on there all the time, and everybody's seeing it.
A little more special when it's Zeitner and Sons writing Zeitner on the pay to line.
Yeah, when that one says Zeitner, it's definitely better.
That's probably the only way they won't misspell it. They get your name right on there. So they can spell it right.
Yeah.
Corey Zeitner, driver of the number 19, man. Appreciate you coming on the show. It's been too long. We'll have to get you back on soon.
All right, thank you.
We're going to take a break. We'll be back on the front stretch.
Don't be that guy on the work site freezing his lug nuts off, wondering why he never went to Red Oak Fabrication for incredibly warm and working man-proof gear. From simple work gloves, boots, or hats to full jackets and coveralls, Carhartt from Red Oak Fabrication will keep you warm during the brisk winter months for a lot less than those big city prices. Find them online at redoakfabrication.com/Carhartt. Like their Facebook page for monthly specials and stop by in person on the corner of 3rd Street and East Grimes in Red Oak, Iowa.
Every has run into the same problem. It's well past normal parts store closing hours, but you need that one to finish your car. The guys who brought you White Knuckle Racing by the River bring you Joe's Karting Racing Parts and Tire Store. Open until 10 p.m. Monday to Thursday and open until 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. A parts store that fits your after-hours schedule, and you can turn a few laps at Joe's Karting while you're waiting for your part to get pulled from their warehouse. joeskarting.com for more information.
It's checkers or wreckers as we enter turn 4 on the front stretch, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs.
Welcome back to the front stretch. Turn 4 brought to you by Quaker Steak and Lube, the official watering hole of the front stretch. For the second weekend in a row, there is NASCAR action at Quaker Steak and Lube. And Dirk and myself, along with Chad, you're going to make it down for today's Daytona 500 party.
Now that gambling's legal in Iowa and he can sit there and play.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of that, James says, headed to the sport book on Friday. I'll be heading down there. So, and then Brian says, how many cars is Ross driving in the number 77 car for 2020? No idea. Ross Chastain is a very busy boy, and I have not seen his full schedule, so I can't get you that information quite yet, Brian. Lori says
he's in the truck race Friday.
Lori and Bob are both going back and forth trying to get you to spill the beans on your secret to winning the Pick'ems contest presented by Rick Haven Ridge of Wealth Partners. He's not going to give it. You know what? Come to the Quaker Steak and Lube party. I'll let him tell you there. Yeah. How's that? Get down to Quaker Steak and Lube today.
I don't know, as a married couple, why they don't just buy one.
Oh, they'd fight. You kidding me? They'd fight.
They'd buy one and they'd both have the
one membership to his website. Oh, I thought you meant get into one contest or one entry into the contest.
I wish I had 5 wives. I could get $15 from each one of them, and I'd buy that membership.
Get down to Quaker Steak and Lube today for the Daytona 500 party. We're going to kick things off at about 12:30, and it's going to run until the checkered flag waves for the Daytona 500. That could be 4 o'clock. That could be 8 o'clock, depending on how the carnage goes. But we'll be there drinking on, and there is some awesome specials from Quaker Steak and Lube. Make sure you get over to the Front Stretch Facebook page to find those.
I'm trying that new wing sauce.
The pineapple
teriyaki.
Pineapple teriyaki. That does look very, very good.
That sounds good.
The Daytona 500 party, once again, starts at 12:30. That's also when the specials kick off. And I'm trying to pull up the specials page for Quaker Steak and Lube. So bear with me as my computer loads.
They were doing an all-you-can-eat wing special, but it said rules apply, so I'm not exactly sure what that meant.
The rules are bone-in and only start at 12:30. So you can't go there at 10:30 and get the all-you-can-eat bone-in wings. $12 for all-you-can-eat wings. You could take $3 off of a lube tube for domestic beer, $1 off of Wells, $2 off of drafts for domestic beers. You can get yourself a $2 Lubarita or a $3 Bloody Mary. I think I'm going to start out with one of those $3 Bloody Marys. Quaker Steak and Lube's Bloody Marys are pretty darn good, and that will help take kind of the edge off the day. But we're going to be down there at starting at 12:30. Pools to be able to win, cash pools available. so that you can talk to Dirk, and he'll get you signed up for those. Quaker Steak and Lube is kind of up in the air, but either way, you're going to win $100. Whether it's $100 cash or a $100 gift card, we're still kind of working that detail out, but you can win $100 from Quaker Steak and Lube. Absolutely free to join. Doesn't cost you anything to get into that contest, and win. Also, make sure you join the Pick'ems contest presented by Rick Havenridge of Wealth Partners. Find out what Rick can do for you by going to rickhavenridgeadvice.com. Chad's going to be down at the Daytona 500 party. I imagine you're going to be on your laptop just getting fantasy stuff out and last-minute tips.
Oh, yeah. You got to get those DraftKings, FanDuel, all those picks, Fantasy Live, driver group game.
He's making so much money off his website, we need to hook him up with Rick.
Yeah. That's true. We need to get find out what Rick can do for you with your retirement. All right, guys, we really appreciate you joining us. I know turn 4 was pretty short, but we went long in turn number 1. We want to give plenty of time for Clint Bowyer in turn 2 and Corey Zeitner in turn number 3. I want to say a big thank you to everybody for joining us. Make sure to get down to Quaker Steak and Lube today for the Daytona 500 party. Great specials, great food, all-American race. The audio, I control the audio, so it is turned way up so that you can hear the commentators. You can find out what all is going on. In the commercial breaks, we're going to give you opportunities to win so many prizes. Get out of Quaker Steak and Lube. If you get there before the drop of the green flag, you can get into the contest. If you can get there after the drop of the green flag, you can still win prizes from the front stretch. I want to say a big thank you, Chad, for coming in. Don't forget fantasyracingtips.com for more information on what Chad can do for you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And for Dirk Houston, I'm Dan Taylor. Thank you to everybody that tuned in on Facebook. We'll do it again next weekend as we will recap what happened at the Daytona 500, and we will get, hopefully we'll get some, we'll try to get the Daytona 500 winner on the show. We seem to be having pretty good luck with NASCAR lately.
Yeah, their NASCAR strings are getting pulled and pulling them in the right direction. We haven't broke them yet.
Give us time.
I feel like Brad Keselowski. Yeah, give us some time. We'll screw it up.
Right, give us. That's going to do it for us today. Thank you again, everybody. Have a great weekend. This has been The Front Stretch, presented by Joe's Karting on AM 590.
The official watering hole of The Front Stretch has you covered any day of the week with the best wings, great burgers, and amazing steaks. Each weekday from 4 to 6 is happy hour, featuring $1 off draft and well drinks plus $4 Luberitas. Mondays are kids' night. Tuesdays are all-you-can-eat wings for $12.95, and the lube even delivers to the Council Bluffs area. Like Quaker Steak and Lube Council Bluffs on Facebook for a full list of weekly events.
Get to Quaker Steak and Lube.
Mid-America Drive, Council Bluffs.
Hey, look at that. You're sitting on your couch playing Halo, Madden, or NASCAR while your friends are at Joe's Karting. Each lap is an adrenaline-filled, heart-pumping, white-knuckle experience that you can only get at the Metro's largest indoor karting track. Eco-friendly Honda engines rip you around their professionally designed road course at breakneck speeds. Can you reach the 14-second lap bracket? There's only one way to find out. Put the controller down and get to Joe's Karting, 23rd Avenue in Council Bluffs next to Quaker Steak and Lube.
This has been the Front Stretch Radio Show, presented by Joe's Karting in Council Bluffs. To contact Dan or Dirk, find them on Facebook at The Front Stretch or email them at frontstretch590@gmail.com. If you missed any part of today's show or want to hear a previous show, subscribe to the Joe's Karting YouTube page, where you can find almost every Front Stretch show.